You know, vibe is one of those words that I started using ironically, and then somewhere between middle school and college, it became a staple part of my vocabulary.
Put out the vibe.
I think it's a great word to help explain what we can't put into words. You saw this guy in the thumbnail, I know why you clicked. I think this children's show from the 80s tapped into something that others have tried and failed to replicate. You cannot deny the cultural impact this funny blue train has made, and I genuinely think it's just because of his unique vibe. But what is a vibe? Yes. Yes. No.
And we all laugh so very much.
Okay, but Google defines it as this: a person's emotional state or the atmosphere of a place as communicated to and felt by others. Great. Okay. Well, an emotional state is an important point to pick out from that, because vibes are all about how we feel. Does the vibe make us happy or sad? Does it make us feel good or not so good?
I don't feel so good.
Let's dig deeper. A distinctive feeling or quality capable of being sensed. It's something you just sense. You just know it. Now, when we're talking about art, it's subjective.
Old and bright. More like belongs in the trash.
Something that's got a good vibe to you might make someone else physically ill.
What about you, Elaine, mate? Well, Deco? I'm okay, thanks.
I don't understand.
Are you not feeling well, James?
I don't like it, okay?
But when you look at something that's gotten popular, there's a reason. More than just a few people have picked up on some good qualities of that thing, and there's a general consensus that it's good.
That's pretty good.
So does Thomas have good vibes? For the sake of this video, I will be talking about the first 5 series of this show, which are regarded as the classic era of Thomas. I'm not commenting on whatever happens afterwards. So the rules of this show are simple. Everything is exactly the same as the real world, except the trains can talk. So yes, this means all events from history are canonical to the show.
That's it. Yes, it's war.
Gosh!
The series boldly never attempts to explain the why of these talking vehicles, except for you. Sort of. I'll come back to this another time. Right, so you've got these happy little colorful trains, and they're all friends, except they're not.
Just pathetic. He should give up and be preserved before it's too late.
Shut up.
Oh dear, my system is out of order. No one understands my case. You don't know what I suffer, moaned Henry. Rubbish, said Thomas. You're too fat, you need exercise.
My favorite station is for Farquhar, said Thomas. Mine is Maithwaite, said Toby. Percy, what's yours? The docks, he murmured. Ha, sniffed Thomas, we can tell. All right, then, Arsdale End. That's my home, replied Toby. That's why I like it, especially when you're there and not here.
These trains hate each other. This isn't your run-of-the-mill children's show where everyone's always on good terms. Thomas and friends is misleading, more like Thomas and coworkers. And it's part of what makes these stories so unique. They mirror real-life conflict one might encounter in day-to-day life. I'm sure we all know someone who annoys us, and if you don't, then it's you. Thomas is grounded, it's real. Sometimes you get your ass handed to you and you've just got to get on with it.
Life isn't fair. Let's teach them that from the off.
This show doesn't talk down to you, which is a huge part in its universal appeal. A lot of shows for young children are very patronizing.
First of all, I just want to say Dora.
And the thing about Thomas is that it gives the viewer some credit. The Reverend W. Awdry, creator of the original books the show is based on, was very intentional in creating something that transcended age. The first thing you'll probably note when watching the show is the visual style. Thomas has changed its medium a couple times in recent years, but everyone remembers the models, for better or for worse. The decision to film with miniatures was genius, because it's a show about trains. You can have them running up and down the track like how the real ones do. It just makes sense. The show was brought to television by Britt Allcroft, with David Mitton as the director. The team created something incredibly beautifully crafted, with composed frames that feel just like illustrations come to life. The Unlucky Tug has made some great video essays going more in depth about the beauty of this show, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. And yes, there are some unsettling moments in the show, not always intentionally. Like, ew! But there is a charm in its imperfections. I'm reminded of Rankin Bass.
Do you not feel like an idiot?
Well, no, because I'm wearing it with confidence.
You overlook some of the rough bits because it's just so endearing. It's an art form you just don't see enough of nowadays. People call it dated, but I think if you play to its strengths, there's a lot of potential, and the team behind Thomas knew that. Now, we can't talk about vibes without sound. The theme song to Thomas the Tank Engine is nothing short of iconic. You just can't think about the train without hearing. Conceived by Mike O'Donnell and Junior Campbell, the theme song has been commended as a genius composition, and the scores within the episodes are just as good. Now, if you were trying to make this show in the 80s, adapting these quaint little railway books, your first thought for the score might be pastoral and orchestral. And sure, the show gets there eventually. But Mike and Junior weren't going to go with convention. The predominant instruments are synthesizers, and it works so well. There's metallic clings and clangs and whistles.
Yes, please, answered James.
And just by hearing the music, you can tell it's about trains. I think it's also worth noting that even the dialogue is inspired by trains. The Reverend Audrey would listen to the sounds of steam engines, and he would write his interpretations of their chuffing and puffing as what he thought the engines were saying. Repeated phrases pop up a lot in the show.
Why don't you go fast? Why don't you go fast? Called Annie and Clarabelle. Wait and see, hissed Thomas. I can't do it, I can't do it, I can't do it, puffed Gordon. I will do it, I will do it, I will do it, puffed Edward.
Like, come on, that's pretty creative. I asked some of you guys on Twitter how you would describe the vibe of Thomas, and I think I agreed with just about every answer. It was really cool hearing everyone's perspective, and I even learned some new words. There were a few words, though, that came up again and again, one of which was nostalgic. Even removed from the context of our own nostalgia for the series, those seasons were based on books that were several decades old at the time. The books themselves were even nostalgic when you consider their basis in Wilbert's childhood growing up around trains. This one really made me think for a moment. He's right. The series is based on books that, at the time of the first season, are nearly 40 years old already. Children who grew up with the books would be getting nostalgic watching the show when it was brand new. I think it goes further than that, though. Even without the books, the series is inherently nostalgic for one reason. It's about steam engines. The main characters are the embodiments of a bygone era. Thomas is a period piece. A very important thing to note as well is that none of these characters actually talk themselves. There's no voice cast, everything is told by a narrator. You're being told a story, like a memory that gets passed down. This mode of narrative is intrinsically nostalgic because it always means it happened in the past. And honestly, I think this is how they get away with the faces not moving. You just kind of... You know what other stories are told like this? Fairy tales. Fairy tales are often characterized by the following elements: a hero, magical creatures in fantastic settings, a moral lesson, obstacles and defeating evil, and a happily ever after. Fairy tales are often traditional. Many were passed down from storyteller to storyteller before being recorded in books. And you know what? Thomas has every single one of these. I would go as far as to say Thomas is a modern fairy tale. Many of you agreed to another vibe, and that was escapism. Whenever I had a rough day as a kid, happiness was only a VHS play button away. Sodor isn't real, talking trains aren't real. But the memories of these faces and places we knew in our childhood are very real. I think most of us have a favorite piece of media that is so immersive it completely transports you into its own world. You found a vibe that comforted you in a way that you just can't quite describe. I've been talking for a while about what I think makes Thomas successful in creating a vibe, but there's still so much I just can't bring to the surface. And for many people, it might be something else entirely. I think that with art, when there's enough intention and passion behind something, those qualities shine through in the final product in ways you might not expect. I'm not saying these are substitutes for good storytelling, but they can get you pretty far. This thing is running on vibes alone. Overall, Thomas is a well-crafted show with a lot of love behind it. And for all the memes and jokes, it made enough of an impact on me as a kid that I'm still talking about it today. So I guess I'm just still vibing.